Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Data Driven Supply Chain Podcast. Today, we have a guest from inpilot, a great company that we already worked with for a blog post. He will be able to introduce more his work in the manufacturing sector and talk to us about the labor shortage in the supply chain. So, Chris, really happy to have you here. Talk to the audience a bit about your background in manufacturing sector. I think you were in aerospace, and what are you doing right now?
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Yasin. And yeah, my name is Christopher. I'm co-founder of inpilot. We have a digital solution for everyone who has frontline workers. So it's not just in the manufacturing industry, although we do have clients in that sector. It's also industrial, field service, and whatnot. So yeah, basically what we do is we create that layer between the frontline worker and the complex systems like the ERP, the even CRM, even CMMS in the case of maintenance. So we simplify that for the worker.
Perfect. Cool. And what's your background a bit, and how did you come up with this need to digitalize the work on the frontline worker?
Yeah, I have some would say an interesting background, which is I started off as a chemist. I did a lot of R&D. Then I started working at Pratt and Whitney as a contractor company, but in those companies, contractor is the equivalent of an employee. And then it was in aerospace manufacturing. In that case, I worked on the shop floor, so it was more engineering for all that was chemical, and they had a problem with quality. So that was my project with them. And then I started doing more custom work on my own, more software related. And then when I joined Mango Software, which is the company that spun off inpilot, it's then that we focused on creating the product. And the idea behind it mainly was Mango was also always doing custom work for companies, which many of them were in the manufacturing or industrial. The big one was with Veolia, and they manage Hydro-Québec's data center. And that software that we did custom for them, we took the good ideas and created inpilot.
Well, that's fantastic. And we've seen kind of the same, like in my company, the same setup where at first we were just talking to companies, and we saw that they were all making their own custom solution for the same problem. And then when we researched a bit more on what was happening and interviewed people, this is where we realized the common ground a bit everywhere. So digitalization of the knowledge in the frontline workers, why is it such an important point right now in time, do you think?
Awesome. Well, at first, when we started inpilot, it was mainly around collecting knowledge, capturing tribal knowledge, some would say. And then eventually we moved from that. But just to answer your question, why it's important, obviously there's a big labor shortage right now. I think almost every company is impacted, not only in the manufacturing sector. And it's very important to capture that knowledge from your senior technicians, senior workers, so that it's easier to onboard the new people onto it. So that's the biggest no-brainer for most companies is to do that. But what I would say is that the feedback I have from the market is that they're all overloaded and they don't even have time to do that work. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I've been in this shop floor, and I've been in discussion with those mega big companies. And so I've seen the both side of the stuff. We actually discussed that with Ahmad in our podcast, The State of Labor Shortage. Check this out if you want. We also did a recap with you and our folks at DeepSight. I'm going to link this into the description. But what I've seen was that everybody is overloaded. They don't have time. And they have a big leak in their knowledge, which make them even more overloaded. And this is a very pressing problem I've seen, because on the supplier side, when they interact with like big companies that have this knowledge leakage problem because of the travel knowledge not being documented, one thing that they've said is that it's as if they were working with an amnesic company. They forget them. They forget them. They forget even how they should work. So to the extreme, they even forget like where kind of are the drawing and how to like
Yeah.
interpret them. Right? This is at this point in some of these big corporations. So it's not just like a small shop problem. It's honestly endemic. And then when I've spent a lot of time uh, discussing with big company about this because I naively thought that this was an easy problem to fix. And then when I talked to them, I was like, this is a mess. Like they don't have time to document this. They can get their people to do this on top of the other work because since there's a labor shortage, there are more work piled
Mm-hmm.
on top of them. And since there's a labor shortage, it means that there's more job than people. So the attrition and then the roulement in their personnel is quite high.
Yeah.
People move a lot, and then they just take away their knowledge with them. So it's actually a very very pressing and important problem to tackle. I've seen that you did a very good recap, but like in your from your experience, right? Could you
Mhm.
recap us the whole labor shortage situation and explain to
Awesome.
us like manufacturing, like why this thing is happening?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But while you were talking about, the retraining and everything, like of the vicious cycle, like we don't have time to do it, but you don't have more time to do it if you don't have the employees and the employees leave. I understand that. And we even have one example, my co-founder, Philippe, he talked to a company where they have an ERP and everyone inside the ERP, it's been so long since they had the last training that they have to repay the supplier for their ERP, another training to train the current employees, but that knowledge was lost. So basically, you have new people coming in and working with that ERP, not knowing how to put the correct data in it, and then that causes more problems and whatnot. So it's definitely a big issue.
Yeah.
So if you want me to recap, well, I think it's very evident that there's a problem. The labor shortage is here, but I'm more interested in like the reasons behind it, like not just, oh, we're in the labor shortage. There's the solution, the reason behind it, and sometimes you can mix and match those and get a better idea of what's going on. I'm not necessarily like more informed than you, but from my perspective, what I can say is that um, most people, when they think about manufacturing, it's not very enticing for necessarily a new person that graduates. Tech is very hot, has been for a while. Even me myself, I think I mentioned in the article or the blog, I myself left manufacturing exactly for the reason because I felt that my job security, not job security in the sense that will I have a job more, is it a safe environment? That part I was working with a lot of chemicals, etc. This is not what I wanted to do a long term from a personal point of view, and also for the opportunities. I felt like in manufacturing you were more limited. It's more old school. So although I did change industries, I ended up back where I was, which is talking to manufacturers on the shop floor and understanding their problems, but in a different format, which is where I help them digitize their processes. So back to the reason. So first of all, I think is the fact that new people are not necessarily interested in going into manufacturing, and what people are doing to solve that is sometimes going towards immigration. We have an example of a company, yeah, a shop floor, a machine shop, which is hiring a lot of people from North Africa region, and they have to work with the immigration process, everything. But the problem is so big that they're willing to go get these employees from there, and even paying the same salaries that they would pay the other employees right now here. So this is just to illustrate how big of a problem is and how how much impact it has within the manufacturers. So that's one way to do it. But overall, I feel like the real problem, yes, there's automation. Yes, you can bring automation, replace jobs, increase productivity. But at the end of the day, you still need people working. Like I don't see how a lot of people even of times when they mentioned like, oh, we have a new software, but instead of doing the manual labor, they're entering data. So you'll still need people. That's my opinion, and you're never going to replace them. All you can do is make sure they onboard quicker, they skill them faster, or you can reskill them. We have an example where that same company, which is hiring immigrants, is taking certain employees in one production line and retraining them to be able to do another production line during the weekend. So it's reskilling, upskilling people, finding new ways to get new people. And of course, there's solutions that can help, such as inpilot. If not, we would not have a business. But it's only to help. It will not solve the core problem, which is, in my opinion, there's just simply not enough people interested in manufacturing. Right? I
Yeah,
don't know what
and
you think about it. Yeah.
yeah. I totally agree with your point. There, like, there's clearly a demand and a supply issue in this whole system, and the supply issue is tricky because it's physically bound to somewhere. Like, you can't just remotely hire the folks in North Africa and they tell them like, hey, stay over there, just like do my part and stay. Like, if you could, fantastic, the labor shortage we saw, right? But this is called outsourcing to another company. So you have to bring folks physically. And now what's happening and what I've seen is that you're competing heavily, not just geographically. If people are literally changing career, and not just like staying at the same spot on the same career, you're competing against the global job industry, not just like your own industry right now. So there's less people over there. And if like the new graduates are not even interested remotely to go into a shop like this, you have no chance, right? The only thing that is left, what I've seen is you train people from scratch, and you commit to that. So you're turning your manufacturing shop into like a kind of an academy. Literally, that's what's happening. You're giving them certification, you're giving them training, you're giving them like good benefits, and you hope that they stay there, right? Or you turn your manufacturing shop as like from an immigration center to like I put these people a job and then they stay in the community, which is also very tricky. Not just in the fact that you have to make sure that they're doing their job properly. You have to ensure that they can stay there and they mesh really well with the diaspora that is around the wherever your shop is located. I've seen some shops where it's very difficult for immigrants to come because they don't speak French and they're too old to kind of do it like with as much energy as the young generation, let's say. So after 2 years, they still don't speak French, right? So they're not meshed properly with the population. So they're not very happy there, right? Why would they stay in your shop afterward? And this is very, very, very problematic. So from my point of view, I think that there's the best way forward here is to, like, if you're doing immigration stuff, ensure that there's going to be a good cultural fit wherever you are, and just be like realistic about it. This is very important. Second thing is that if you're upskilling, you do it like ensure that you can do it well and in a repeatable fashion, because it's not true that they will all stay there. The third thing is that you have to make your shop as interesting as possible. That's actually very important. I've seen shop where I entered there and like everything was old school. People were not looking that interested about what was happening. And I've entered shop, I was like, this is the future. There was like automation going on. There was one guy with like trees set up around him. It looked cool. I was like, yeah, this is great. And they had a gym inside also. So yeah, I think this is kind of where it will go, but it's a supply and demand problem. So jumping into this, like, this is the labor shortage right now, right? What do you think with the likelihood of a recession coming up in this whole system? How do you think it will impact the whole problem set?
Well, If I knew, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I'd be somewhere else. But but it, like, we don't know for sure. But there's probably a recession coming on. Is it going to, reduce demand and produce goods, and then jobs will be cut? Maybe, we don't know. Or is it gonna, rebalance the different industries, and so that more people will be interested? If you lose your job in tech, maybe you'll see manufacturing. Hey, they pay well, good benefits. Okay, I don't mind staying in a factory. Like, maybe that'll come into play. I don't know, to be honest. Like, I'm not sure. Um, I'm thinking manufacturing will be the most impacted, but I'm not sure. I couldn't really tell you. What are your thoughts? I'm more interested to know, like, what do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, this whole problem, I was thinking about it as a supply and demand
Mm,
issue. For me, it's kind of this. It's just that the rule of the game pre-pandemic and right now kind of changed. I think that it will lessen a bit the pressure because
mm,
like a year from now, it was a pressure cooker. Like everybody was freaking out about getting more people to do the job, and the demand was skyrocketing. If you were looking at like the suppliers, they had much, much more job coming their way than they could handle. And
mm,
since they could hire people, they couldn't get more job in. So they were kind of rate limited by their own size, which is okay because they have enough job coming in. So I think that there's going to be a rebalancing out.
mm,
It's already happening in the tech sector. But I don't think it will stay like this. I think like it's just like um, a temporary like trough into this. I think that's the game now. Like
mm,
if nothing change in this industry, there will still be labor shortage while other industry are able to fix it up. Like the
yeah,
whole manufacturing industry need to figure out how to get people in the shop floors, right? In
mm,
those even the desk jobs, like if you're quoting on stuff or if you're doing like admin work for a manufacturing company, you have to make it something that people are interested as a career to grow into. So I think this will stay. It still will be an issue. I think it's just a less painful one for a while, but definitely I think that it will be a bit less pressure on this front.
yeah,
That's my
yeah.
take.
Probably. Yeah, yeah, exactly. We'll see. We'll see.
So if you're listening to this in 2024 and you think that what I said is completely stupid, send me a DM and we can talk about that. Perfect. So I want to jump into more of like your spot, your sweet spot. I want to understand what's your thought about how our business managing change and digital transformation in this space and a bit around, because you're handling this a lot with your digitalization of knowledge.
Yeah, yeah. Well, usually when we work with companies that go from paper to digital solutions, that's where you have the biggest gap to fill, and people or workers are not, inclined to start using a tablet where they were used to using paper. So what we've seen when we talk to companies is that they have to, you know, how can I say this? Like, massage it in. Like, they would start talking to the employees 2 years in advance, say, "Hey, Eric, we're gonna, do this. It's inevitable. It's gonna come. Like, it's gonna come. You'll work your way into it, and you need to prepare them. You need to have a plan. You can't, just come in and change everything for overnight." He knows. Like, he specifically told us, if we use your solution today, two people are going to quit. The most senior are going to quit immediately. And that's why, you need to have a plan. You need to ease it in, massage it in. You need to discuss it openly. Uh, and there's reasons why they don't want to use it. Maybe it's difficult for them. It's easy for us, for you and me, right, to use a tablet. For them, it's not as convenient. So as long as you work with them, it's open, there's a good relationship, and you understand that it's a difficult change to embrace. Um, I think that's the good way to approach it. It's not just saying use this or you're not good. So those are my thoughts. So we had that example of that company, but most company is to embrace change in bite-sized pieces. Some people it's the opposite. The manager or the business leader is trying to innovate everything at the same time. We see that often. And the problem with that is that they have a lot of needs. They don't prioritize, and they have inside their head a solution that would solve everything at once. And it's not the good approach, in my opinion. It's better to start small, have small wins, and then progressively integrate more, and then eventually all the businesses,
Yeah, that's
have
what
that
the
digital
ERP is
transformation.
for, right?
Yeah,
To just solve
yeah,
every problem. You go there, you get SAP, like a
yeah.
multi-million-dollar deal for 5 years, and then you don't have to do anything anymore. Everything is automated. 4.0, let's go. Totally agree with you. There's a lot of companies that in a different level of maturity. I've seen it
Mm,
every time. Like if there's someone that is too eager to change stuff, right? It's both a blessing and a curse because they could mess it up bad for everyone for years to come, right?
mm,
If they choose the wrong project and go too big and try to rally everyone, and then people are like, okay, let's give it a shot. This guy is convincing, and then the thing just flops. It's dead. People are like, hey, I'm not. It's not helping me at all, and I'm just pissed off now because this thing suck, right? We've seen that a lot with in our company with people that try to change too much too fast, and this
mhm,
lead to burned out people with a reason because they still have to operate their things. It's not like magically tomorrow I have a new process and things that I have to do training, and if it's a complicated beast that involve everybody while this is ongoing, I'm already pissed off because it's disturbing my flow. The best solution, like you said, um, are kind of allow you to take baby steps and are modular enough that you don't need to do the whole thing, right? If the future that you envision is this whole thing, fantastic. Where does it hurt the most first? Is this thing, this
mhm,
little thing? Let's do that, right? Let's change that thing and like
yeah,
be done with it. And if there's enough value here, this is how internally you can build win. And then you're able to say, hey guys, I told you this will be easier, right? And it's good. And now we were gonna do this other thing, and it's gonna be even better for everybody. The pragmatic, lean approach to changing an organization is I think it's the most effective one because, in my opinion, it's not really really the technology per se or like the
mm,
processes that you're trying to change. It's really like the whole culture. There's a big cultural shift, right? From going into paper and then just like, hey, we're just gonna do the work and that's it, to a continuous improvement type of organization that not only like do it with the I don't know, if they're policing part, the part you're doing, but the whole organization. The whole organization will always kind of be incrementally changing stuff until they get like big boost in productivity. Um,
mhm.
yeah, it's kind of my thought on this, and I've seen it over and over again. And the very worst one I've seen are the AI project. The
Oh,
AI,
really? Okay.
yeah, the AI project that pops off in a company that like have barely a data infrastructure, and then they're trying to shove this somewhere. um it's always a disaster, always a disaster. Like the very now when I consult people on that, the very first thing I ask is like, show me that data, right? Where is that data? And if I can't see it, I'm like, first digitalize your stuff, and then we're going to talk about this because this is useless. And I think this is where like solution like yours come in, and like new solution that we see that are trying to take old processes and then digitalizing them comes in, because then you're changing something piecewise, and then you're
Mhm,
able to do something with this digitalized data. Uh,
mhm.
yeah.
No, those are good points. And right now at inpilot, we are thinking about having small AI projects for all the data that we collect. And a bit like you, we don't know where to start, what to prioritize. So, you make a good point. Like start with the data, then see what you can do next. But if you do consulting, hey, I might need your services in the near future.
Perfect. Let's do that. Like, let's
Yeah.
check your stuff and see. But honestly, it's very simple. Like, it's if you have enough structured data, you can do something about whatever you're trying to do. If you don't think about it. Right? Try to figure out how to get that data and structure it. Most issues in AI and a big leap into like functionality I've seen were always coming from We figure out how to gather a heckload of data, and now we have enough to do something about it. Perfect. Thank you,
Cool.
Chris. This was absolutely awesome. Any way that people can reach out to you for discussing more labor shortage or anything having to do with digital transformation?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have frontline workers that need help in collecting data and getting data from complex systems like ERP, contact us. It's at inpilot.ca. So you just go on the website, you click contact us, and we'll call you in a few days. So thanks again, Yasin. It was a pleasure.
Perfect. Amazing. Yeah. So thank you all for listening to this episode of the data-driven supply chain. We'll tune in for next week where we might have another guest. So have a great rest of the week, everyone.